SCRD, you are very responsible for not only history, but also making sure we have cultural accuracy. How do you plan to cultivate cultural accuracy while keeping in mind that some people may not be Filipino, but are wanting to learn what our culture is about? And then how do you make sure they are learning cultural appreciation and not cultural appropriation?
Kasama has a very big, diverse, vast demographic of members, and should be heavily encouraged that you do not need to be Filipino to be able to immerse yourself in one's culture. And in terms of cultural accuracy, here in the Bay Area, we have access to resources and organizations like Parangal, Lika, who would be willing to help ensure cultural accuracy and to make sure all of our dances and performances are being held to the best intentionality and care. Also, I meant into research. I hope research into the peoples and dance and the stories we're representing are the best way to make sure that their stories and the stories of their ancestors are passed down properly and appreciated.
For me, in order to keep cultural accuracy, I would first reach out to YPSP. I feel like we are very privileged to have a Philippine Studies program here, and I feel like I would reach out to professors to make sure what the work I'm putting out is culturally accurate, and as well as what Andrew said, reaching out to other outside organizations around San Francisco. I feel like our city we have a lot of Philippine culture here, so there is countless of different organizations we could reach out to. And as well as people who are not Filipino who want to be part of this community, I feel like since Kasamahan is a place of inclusivity, I feel like no matter where you come from or what you identify as, you should be able to participate in Philippine culture. And yeah.
There are many avenues to exploring and delving into the intricacies pertaining to culture. Which aspects of Philippine culture are you most drawn to, and how do you plan on sharing these aspects with the rest of membership through this position?
I am most drawn to dance, obviously. I feel like dance troupe is a great way to first introduce dance to the general membership, whether it be Tinikling or another dance. First introducing that aspect will be one way for me to show that culture, and as well as PCN Fall Symposium. I feel like attending that will also show you indigenous dances as well as different barrio dances. I feel like we have a very wide aspect of selections of dance that people could choose from, and I also like how, again, it's an inclusive space, anyone can do it. And as well as going on into the spring semester, attending PCN Spring Symposium as well would be one way I would show that. And yeah.
I'm also in the same boat in that I think performance and art is one of the best ways to showcase our culture. We are the second ever PCN here in the Bay. We've been doing this for 53 years, and we have one of the largest PCN productions in the state. And I think being able to express not just dance, but aspects like Sabang Pagbikas, and especially with our resources with Create we are able to gain access to people like cultural areas from indigenous tribes in the Philippines, to be able to put on these like culturally accurate pieces like Subanen and Daho and Tausu. And also, I think, as I said in my speech, one of the biggest things I want to do at CRD is to reestablish a student-led Rondalia here at Kasamahan. Partly partnered with Lika, as they've also started to increase engagement with live music during PCN. I would like to take it a step further and perhaps do events that encourage participation inside and outside of PCN, especially given time and the money to rent and use certain instruments, I think it's a perfect way to bridge, to bring live music back to USF, and that's not just using outside organizations like Liga or Parallel.
Sam, and then Bree, and then Adrian. And then Mar. Sorry, I didn't see your hand.
Cultural Relations Director is a position that was born as a derivative from PCN Director in order to make sure that we touch on points of cultural learning that PCN Director cannot simply busy with the show. Outside of PCN related activities, how do you plan to uplift cultural learning?
I would like to utilize CRC to the most of my abilities and try and host more workshops and teachings that are outside PCN related, that are not related to PCN, more so the history of certain parts of our culture. Like, for example, like I'm just going to stay on the topic of Rendalia because it's one of the things I'm more passionate about. Having a teach-in or workshop, bringing in Liga as a partner outside of PCN could spark interest in some of the more traditional folk art in the Philippines, like workshops about like tattoo history and the history of like food, and also something I want to touch on are the effects of assimilation that the effects assimilation has on Philippine cultural identity, especially now in the Bay Area with the vast diaspora that we have here in the city.
Similar to Andrew, I would also like to hold interactive workshops. I know an idea that I had in mind was something like parole making. I feel like we have to have the general membership engaged in doing something rather than having something so lecture heavy, because if, let's say we want to do parole making during a gen meeting, and if we present slides and that's the majority of what we do, I feel like the membership will not be engaged, and overall they will like not learn about this certain like aspect. So with something like parole making, it's something we could do hands-on. First, obviously, we would like to talk about the history and symbolism of it, but something interactive, something that could foster community and sort of unify everyone together is a way we could express Philippine culture outside of PC.
Bree, and then Adrian, and then
I know like one big part of like being CRC is also having CRC or like cultural relations committee. How do y'all plan on gaining members for your committee, and how do you, or like what do you expect of like your committee, and like what do you hope for them to kind of help you with as CRD?
There's very common ways of advertising through first and second gen meetings. Although stated in prior director speeches, I would also encourage and advertise outside of those general meetings, because outside of the first 2 weeks of the semester, there's not a space to really advertise that thing, advertise participation in committees. So I would work with publicity director and try and find a new way to engage, encourage engagement in CRC. In terms of my expectations for the committee, I would prefer CRC, although I would be supervising and managing it, I would like CRC to be more open, where everyone's ideas everyone can be open to share their ideas and suggestions, and be able to like express what their culture means to them as well, and their ideas for workshops and teach-ins would help share that exposure to culture with the rest of the general membership.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question one more time?
Yeah. It's just more so like how do you plan on gaining like members for cultural relations committee, and like as if like you're TCRD, like kind of like what you expect like out of your committee?
Okay, so first for recruitment, I feel like it's very common to just advertise it during general meetings, but at the same time, similar to what Andrew said, we're not going to get as much engagement as we want. So I feel like, working with the publicity director and maybe posting it on our Instagram story, maybe putting it on our link tree would be a good idea. And as for what I expect from my CRC, I want them to be part of this committee with purpose and a sort of drive, because since CRD is only a 1-year term, I want to uplift new leaders, and I feel like through CRC we could find those new leaders that we could develop. Also, I would like to, I want to create, again in my speech, I want to create a space where communication is open. I want everyone's opinions to be heard as well. And as for maybe something like workload and what I want them to actually do, I feel like I will delegate tasks just because I'm leading this committee, but I feel like it's important to know that while you're delegating these tasks, they also have their own lives, they also have their own commitments. So it's not always going to be a 50-50 split workload. You're always going to have some sort of imbalance into it, and sort of just relying on each other is a very important aspect to that as well. Just being a helping hand to your committee members, and yeah.
Adrian, and then Mar will be our last question.
So the CRD position
Call them
is
to
one.
speak.
Sorry. So the CRD position is one where people look to you for cultural accuracy. In your speeches, you both expressed a willingness to immerse yourself into culture. What steps would you guys take so that you guys are further educated on Filipino culture?
As a first year being new to the school, I feel like I don't know as much as I want to know. I feel like one way I would learn more about this culture is by reaching out to YPSP. I feel like that's the most obtainable education from it. Simply reaching out to a teacher, emailing them and saying, hey, can we meet to talk about this or this, in order for myself to teach other people in the general membership what is right and what is wrong. And also making sure that that it's okay to be wrong sometimes, or yeah, it's okay to be wrong, and I will be wrong sometimes, but it's important that you take accountability for your wrongdoings and making sure you learn from that.
I agree with Seb in that we're very privileged to have a YPSP program here, and they're here to help us ensure cultural accuracy, especially by going to them and literally just talking to a professor. And we also have other resources here. We have a very large network of alumni as well, and I think communicating with Daro and reaching out to alumni who have also experienced what it's like to be in this space, like exploring their culture as a student would mean a lot. Again, there's also reaching out to organizations like Parangal and Wika, whose input would help ensure cultural accuracy. I also think when holding workshops, I think the presence of YPSP at said workshops and events would help a lot. We invite them to table for first and second gen. We invite them to table at other events as well. And I think having them at certain workshops and maybe even being involved in the workshop instead of just tabling would help, raise interest in asking them questions about certain things being taught in the moment, and also for us as a resource to call upon in the moment to ensure the most intention and care is being put into what we're saying.
We are in the unique location where the Bay Area is the epicenter of Filipino American culture. Personally, I feel like we could work more on that. So how will you educate our membership about the beautiful location that we are in and the cultural significance about it?
Sorry, can you repeat the question one more time?
Yeah. We are in the unique location where the Bay Area is the epicenter of Philippine American culture. Personally, we could do so much more with it, with our messaging about it, but how will you as CRG educate our membership about the beautiful location that we are in and the cultural significance about it?
There's a lot of places and events that happen around San Francisco that we could participate in more. For example, working with the Kappa CD could help, especially during FAM, reach out to local and local businesses and small or large, doesn't matter, to try and encourage our general memberships to interact with those smaller businesses as well. Something, for example, with 415 Palenque, we brought in a bunch of small businesses, and it was a good area for our general members to meet with YKSP and local vendors who are just trying to make their way in this crazy world here. And I think encouraging general membership to interact with those small groups is one of the best ways to in a way network and show about what we have to offer in the city. As I also said earlier, with PCN, we have one of the largest PCNs in the state, and I think encouraging participation in PCN is not only good for like sharing our culture with people who do not go here, but also deepening our idea and identity of cultural identity ourselves and all of our cast members and general members.
I do agree with Andrew. I feel like another way we could educate the general membership about how rich Filipino culture is here, especially in the Bay Area, is for me personally, to work with other e-board members to try and go to some sort of Philippine historical site, like to be there in person to really witness it, because there's so much you could see just on photos, just on a slide, and actually being there and talking to the people who live around there as well about their own experiences and what it's like being Filipino in this area is like. And I guess on top of that as well, maybe